Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Look around the world, and it feels like, well, the effectiveness of governance is facing a fundamental crisis.
Absolutely. For decades, the global gold standard, the ideal, has been the multi-party electoral democracy.
Right. But the results?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just profoundly underwhelming. Erratic policy, constant short-term vision, huge corruption problems.
And that failure, that gap between promise and reality, has created this magnetic appeal for meritocracy.
The idea that leaders should rise based purely on competence.
Exactly. Competence, integrity, proven performance, not just, how well they can win a popularity contest.
So the core tension we really need to get into today is whether these two things, rule by popularity and rule by results, have to be opposites.
Or can they actually be combined, synthesized somehow?
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is to explore the structural solutions. Can we design a meritocratic multi-party democracy?
That's the idea, taking the best parts of free choice, the democratic element.
And weld them to high-performance standards, rigorous ones.
Precisely. And we need to contrast this theoretical ideal with the complex reality of systems like China's single-party structure.
Which claims a kind of meritocracy, but looks very different.
Very different. And then we'll look at even more radical sort of post-ideological blueprints. Designs aimed at solving these chronic problems, short-termism, financial capture.
So if you, the listener, feel kind of fatigued by all the political noise,
or that sense that our current government systems are just, structurally incapable of solving big long-term problems.
yeah, like climate change or infrastructure decay,
Then this is definitely the deep dive for you.
we're looking at structural, data-driven reforms, trying to fix the governance machinery itself.
Moving beyond just left versus right, beyond partisan ideology, to ask, what actually delivers sustainable, high-quality results?
I think that's the perfect hook. We're looking for an operating system upgrade for government, essentially.
That's a good way to put it. #11. The breakdown of traditional multi-party democracy.
So let's start with the diagnostic. What is it about the current global default, the traditional multi-party system?
Why is it so prone to failure when, chasing popularity becomes the #1 goal?
Our sources zero in on 4 major, really crippling flaws that pop up when the system rewards winning over actual governing.
Okay, the first one. And maybe the one that really haunts our long-term future is institutional short-termism.
Right. When a political mandate is only 4 or 5 years long.
Leaders are basically forced to prioritize immediate, visible wins. Things people see before the next election.
Like tax cuts, catchy slogans, quick fixes.
Stuff that benefits the voters now, not necessarily 20 years from now. They get rewarded for campaigning constantly, not for planning for the next century.
And you see the impact immediately, don't you, on things that need decades of foresight.
Oh, absolutely. Complex infrastructure, massive decarbonization efforts.
Why invest in a 30-year high-speed rail line? It costs billions today, won't be running until long after you're out of office.
When you could promise, say, a $500 rebate check that arrives just before polling day.
Yeah, the source suggests the system structurally discourages paying now for gain later. It's almost irrational for a politician not to think short-term.
Exactly. And that environment. It directly cultivates the second flaw. Populism over competence.
Ah, yeah. When the main goal is just being popular.
Charisma, emotional connection. These things often win out over proven qualifications or an actual track record in administration or subject matter expertise.
The whole political process becomes optimized for, compelling theater. Viral sound bites.
Rather than the technical skill needed to run a huge, complex, modern state.
It's like hiring a CEO based on their keynote speech instead of their 10-year balance sheets.
That's a great analogy. And in politics, the speech often carries way more weight.
Which I find, deeply depressing, actually.
It is, because that vulnerability, it's immediately exploited by flaw number 3, corruption and capture.
Okay, how did that link work?
Well, our reading suggests that because these competitive elections are massively expensive popularity contests.
Right, you need huge amounts of money to run.
Parties rely heavily on funding from wealthy interests, corporations, established financial players.
And these donors aren't just being charitable, presumably.
No, they're investing for influence.
Yeah.
And that influence then captures the legislative process.
So policy gets warped away from the public good towards private or special interests.
Precisely. It's that oligarchic feedback loop you hear about. Money buys power, power protects money.
And the average citizen's voice just gets drowned out.
which completely undermines the whole premise of meritocracy, right? That requires integrity public service.
But campaign finance rules often allow this kind of capture to happen systemically.
And then finally, the fourth flaw we see is the lack of institutional memory.
What does that mean exactly?
When new governments cycle in, sometimes every few years, even if they're not radically different ideologically.
There's this powerful tendency to just hit the reset button, isn't there?
Yeah. Disbanding task forces, renaming departments, sometimes explicitly undoing the work of the previous administration just because they did it.
That volatility must be incredibly costly.
Hugely. Strategic development just can't be sustained. You end up with half-finished policies, inconsistent regulations.
And probably very demoralized civil servants who are constantly bracing for the next big arbitrary change.
Yeah. So the combined takeaway from all this, the reason there's such urgency for reform,
is that in a system defined by these four things: short-term pressure, rewarding charisma, financial capture, chronic instability.
it's almost impossible for genuine meritocracy, competence-based governance, to take root and flourish.
Elections become these tribal battles, and actual governing becomes erratic and often ineffective.
Exactly. It sets the stage for needing a different blueprint.
Which brings us neatly to the first major design solution presented in the sources: the meritocratic multiparty democracy, or MMD.
Right. And the goal here, it's important to stress, is explicitly not to get rid of elections,
No, keeps voter choice, keeps competitive elections.
but embeds them in this really comprehensive framework that demands competence, radical transparency, and results-driven governing.
Okay, so how does it start? How do you change the game?
It begins by completely changing how parties even seek power. The system demands performance-based elections held every 5 years.
Performance-based, what does that look like?
Instead of just vague emotional manifestos, parties would be legally mandated to submit these comprehensive 5-year policy roadmaps.
And these roadmaps have to have clear, quantifiable targets.
Absolutely. Objective, measurable things, like, say, a defined reduction in the wealth gap, or verifiable metrics for energy independence.
Or specific co-Euros reduction targets by year 3, or, I don't know, demonstrable improvements in university graduation rates.
Exactly, things you can track. It's basically a contract with the electorate, not just a vague promise.
Okay, that's a big shift. But how do voters track this?
Crucially, voters would get verified performance dashboards. This is maybe the key structural mechanism.
Verified by who?
By a nonpartisan body. These dashboards would show the incumbent party's actual track record against their previous target.
Ah, so you see what they actually delivered?
Right. And rigorously compare those results against the opposition's newly proposed roadmaps.
So the debate shifts from just who do you like
To whose plan is demonstrably better and more achievable based on past performance and future projections.
That changes the whole campaign dynamic. You can't just hide behind charisma anymore.
Not if the data is right there. And the debates themselves would have to change, too.
How so?
Our sources suggest public debates must be moderated by neutral policy institutions. Think universities, data analysts.
Not media personalities or cable news hosts chasing ratings and sound bites.
Exactly. The focus shifts entirely to policy mechanics. Is this plan workable? Is it funded? What are the trade-offs?
But that sounds incredibly complex for the average voter to digest.
It is. And that's where a technology component comes in, the idea of citizen AI assistance.
AI assistance for voters, what would they do?
These tools would be provided to every voter to help them analyze the complex technical details of these policy roadmaps.
So like flagging manipulative data or identifying unrealistic projections.
Yeah, or cross-referencing claims against historical data, helping you cut through the spin.
That's fascinating. So the AI isn't telling you who to vote for.
No, absolutely not. It's a personal cognitive filter, helping you digest the dense technical plans required to run a modern state.
It helps turn the election from just emotion into a contest of verifiable competence.
That's the goal. Now, beyond the campaign, the parties themselves need a major overhaul.
Okay, this involves strict party regulation and transparency.
Yes. To even earn the right to be on the ballot in this MMD system, a party has to prove it maintains a meritocratic internal structure.
What does that mean practically? Like, the party can't just be run by a few big donors or one charismatic family.
Precisely. Their internal systems, how they select candidates, choose their leaders, must be based on objective criteria.
So candidates might have to pass standardized internal leadership exams.
Yes, and demonstrate years of documented civic contributions. Real work, not just connections.
And the party needs a civic audit trail.
Right. showing exactly how they vet and train leaders, how they source their data, the rigorous process for crafting policy. And all of this has to be transparently visible to that oversight body.
And this rigor extends to inclusion, too, addressing the problem of politics being dominated by narrow, entrenched elites.
Yes, the sources mandate minimum thresholds for diversity and inclusion. Gender balance, regional balance, youth representation, these must be met.
And if a party fails, if they don't meet these standards for internal meritocracy or inclusion,
A powerful, nonpartisan electoral oversight body would have the authority to disqualify them from the ballot entirely.
wow, that's a serious filter.
It is. It's designed to remove the purely tribal or ideological aspects, forcing parties to become high-performing representative organizations, not just personality cults or old boys clubs.
Okay, this naturally leads to tackling that third big flaw we talked about, money in politics.
Yeah, and the reform proposal here is pretty radical. A clean slate.
What is it?
Abolish private political donations altogether.
Completely. Wow.
The sources are pretty unequivocal on this. If you want genuine meritocracy, you have to remove the structural mechanism that allows for systemic capture by moneyed interests.
So how are parties funded then, if not by oligarchs or corporations?
Instead, every party receives equal state funding. The amount is based on their verified number of members or supporters.
So funding is tied to genuine public support, not deep pockets.
Exactly. And campaign resources, things like airtime, use of public venues, digital advertising, are distributed equally too. It levels the playing field dramatically.
But wait, there's a potential downside there, right? Hasn't state funding sometimes led to parties becoming stagnant if they don't have to compete for money and maybe they get lazy? Complacent bureaucracies.
That's a critical concern, absolutely. And the MMD blueprint tries to address it with performance incentives. While the base funding is equalized, parties receive a financial merit bonus if they actually hit their stated governance goals while they're in power.
Ah, I see. So their long-term institutional funding is tied to actual results.
Right. It rewards governing quality, not just fundraising ability. It builds in positive feedback for performing well.
Okay, let's talk about the individual politicians now. Even with a meritocratic party structure, the people running still need a baseline of competence.
Definitely. And the proposal suggests that all candidates, whether they're running for local council or national office, must pass a universal civic merit exam.
A test for politicians. What's on it?
This isn't designed to be ideologically biased. It tests core aptitude, constitutional knowledge, a high level of economic and ecological literacy.
So understanding budgets and climate science, for example.
Yes. And crucially, ethical reasoning and leadership judgment. It's meant to screen out the wildly unqualified populist who might just be famous or rely on inherited wealth.
So the voter still chooses.
Yes, absolutely. But they're choosing from a pool of pre-qualified, certified administrators, people who've demonstrated they have the basic toolkit to govern.
Okay, so we've addressed populism by screening for knowledge and short-termism with the roadmaps. What about that institutional memory problem? Governments constantly changing direction.
That requires building stability into the infrastructure itself. The MMD mandates shared platforms.
Like what?
Like a national data commons, basically an open cross-party database holding all government outcomes, research, statistics. Everyone works from the same verified facts.
And also a civil service academy.
Right, training public administrators across party lines. So they share a common knowledge base, a professional ethos, regardless of who wins the election, builds continuity.
And to stop policy being reset constantly.
You need those cross-party audit boards. Their job is to track policy outcomes over decades, not just election cycles.
So they ensure stability and promote long-term development, even if the government changes every 5 years.
Exactly. And the final layer here is about accountability during the term, not just at election time.
Right, continuous accountability, not just waiting 5 years.
Paramount. Governance involves continuous digital polling on key performance indicators, the KPIs from their roadmap.
So people can see in real time if the government is hitting its targets.
Yes. Plus, town hall debates may be moderated by AI-driven fact-checking systems. Real-time citizen feedback platforms used to continuously adjust party programs.
You don't wait 5 years to find out you failed. You adjust course constantly based on data and feedback.
That's the idea. So the genius of this MMD system, as the sources frame it,
Lies in that trade-off.
yeah, you
Yeah.
keep democratic consent, people vote. But that consent is exercised only among pre-qualified, constrained, high-performing teams.
You enhance legitimacy without diluting quality.
Exactly. Because the crucial realization is that meritocracy, without public consent, without that feedback loop, inevitably becomes stagnant technocracy. It loses touch.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. We've laid out this theoretical hybrid, the MMD, but now we have to turn to the biggest existing system that basically rejects traditional multi-party competition in favor of long-term planning and, supposedly, competence: China.
And the source material forces us into this deep, really two-sided analysis. Is China truly a meritocracy, or is it fundamentally just an autocracy?
It's probably the most complex governance paradox on Earth right now.
It really is. Let's start with the strong case for meritocracy, focusing purely on the competence angle.
All right.
This system is entirely built on the cadre promotion system. Unlike electoral politics, getting ahead in the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, is a decades-long grind.
Yeah, we're not talking about someone jumping from being, say, a mayor to running for president in one go.
No, we're talking about officials spending years in small local posts, then moving to county level, then provincial, and their progression is explicitly tied to their track record.
Xi Jinping himself spent decades climbing that exact ladder.
Right, and the promotions are tied directly to measurable results, delivering on specific targets.
What kind of targets?
Economic growth rates in their area, delivering infrastructure projects, hitting environmental protection metrics, maintaining social stability goals.
And if you fail, if your city or province stagnates,
your career stalls, or worse. This creates this intense focus on technocratic governance. Delivering results is paramount.
and this shapes the leadership itself, right?
Yeah.
The sources point out how different the leaders look compared to many Western democracies.
Vastly different. Senior CCP leaders are often seasoned administrators, planners, engineers, economists.
China has one of the highest concentrations of PhDs, especially in science and engineering, in its senior government ranks globally.
These are people who understand complex systems, not just political rhetoric.
And this technocratic insulation from messy election cycles allows for incredible policy continuity.
Unthinkable continuity in many democracies. They can commit to multi-decade strategic efforts.
Like the Belt and Road Initiative, or the massive long-term urbanization plans, or their 5-year plans.
And they execute these huge megaprojects with, frankly, astonishing consistency and speed.
There's also this relentless focus on internal rigor.
Yes. Now, you can argue about political motivations, but the massive ongoing anti-corruption campaigns are undeniable.
The sources cited over 1.5 million officials disciplined or removed. That's a staggering number.
It shows a system, at least trying, to maintain discipline and integrity within its enormous bureaucracy. And their internal evaluations are sophisticated.
How so?
They use data audits, peer reviews, even local satisfaction surveys to assess cadre performance.
So the system claims its legitimacy through performance legitimacy.
Exactly. The argument is our right to rule is validated because we deliver tangible, proven outcomes. Massive poverty reduction, world-class infrastructure, rapid economic modernization.
And they do use some public input mechanisms, right? Like national surveys or testing policies in pilot cities.
Yes, they gather feedback and test things to ensure responsiveness, even without free, contested national elections. It's a strong case for competence based on results.
Okay, but that strong case relies entirely on ignoring the other side of the coin.
Precisely. What happens when that control becomes absolute, unchecked?
Now we have to turn to the undeniable case for autocracy, focusing on control. And the foundation is the single-party monopoly.
Yes. Despite any performance metrics, the CCP maintains absolute, unchallenged control. Period.
There's no political pluralism, no meaningful national competition.
The top bodies, like the Politburo Standing Committee, they're selected entirely behind closed doors by a tiny elite. The core principle of democratic contestation is just absent.
And this control is enforced through pervasive suppression of liberties.
Absolutely. China consistently ranks near the bottom of global indices for press freedom, civil liberties.
Heavy censorship, vast surveillance networks.
And the use of detention, imprisonment for political dissent is systemic. You think about the 709 crackdown in 2015 on human rights lawyers.
A stark reminder. No tolerance for organized opposition or serious criticism.
And furthermore, in recent years, we've seen this distinct shift away from collective leadership towards the personalization of power.
You mean Xi Jinping?
Yes. The abolition of presidential term limits in 2018, enshrining Xi Jinping thought into the Constitution.
That's classic strawman politics, right? concentrating power.
It goes against even the CCP's own historical attempts, post-Mao, to institutionalize some checks within the party.
And this concentration is possible because there's a complete lack of checks outside the party.
No independent judiciary. The courts serve the party's will.
The legislatures, the National People's Congress, basically rubber stamps.
There's zero mechanism for independent judicial review or public inquiry that could hold the central leadership truly accountable for its decisions. That structural opacity is a defining feature of autocracy.
And finally, that power is often preserved through repression for stability.
When the system feels threatened by major dissent, we see its reaction.
The history of Tiananmen, the mass internment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang.
The recent dismantling of democratic structures in Hong Kong via the national security law in 2020.
Efficiency is maintained, yes, but sometimes at the cost of profound human liberty and rights.
So the synthesis here is unavoidable. China is this paradox. Highly effective, but fundamentally brittle.
Its sophisticated administrative competence, its technocratic ability, they don't negate its authoritarian core.
No. It's best understood not just as meritocracy, but as an autocracy optimized by performance metrics.
And the critical lesson, maybe, is that performance-driven systems, when they lack genuine accountability and external checks,
They always risk eventual decay, stagnation, catastrophic errors, because they lack that essential critical feedback loop that comes from real openness and contestation.
Okay, so if China shows that a single, confident structure risks authoritarianism and eventual blindness.
The research then asks, well, what if we took the efficiency, the long-term vision of that kind of structure?
But deliberately engineered checks and balances to prevent the negative side effects, the personality cult, the censorship, the opacity.
Exactly. And this leads us to the second really radical blueprint, the Meritocratic Governance Party, or MGP.
A single party, but designed differently.
Yes. Conceived as a post-ideological vehicle for governance, its founding philosophy is described as adaptive pragmatism.
Adaptive pragmatism, meaning
It rejects rigid dogma, not left, right, or centrist in the traditional sense. The MGP commits itself only to one core principle: what works best.
best, based on what?
Based on objective data and continuous real-time evaluation. Evidence is king.
That sounds almost impossible in today's world, which is so defined by ideological battles. If it's not capitalist or socialist, how does it decide economic policy?
It remains completely economically agnostic. It's driven by outcomes.
So give me an example.
Okay. If data showed that, say, a specific form of platform cooperative ownership maximized citizen wealth and reduced inequality better than traditional corporations.
The MGP would implement the cooperative model nationally.
Yes. Or if universal basic income, UBI, proved in pilot zones to be the most efficient way to distribute wealth and boost productivity, they'd implement UBI.
So it's willing to adopt whatever works, regardless of ideological label.
Exactly. And even the metrics aren't fixed. They could shift the fundamental measure of success.
Away from just gross domestic product, GDP, which often hides inequality.
Right. Towards something more holistic, like gross domestic happiness, GDH, if the data supported that as a better indicator of overall societal health and well-being.
That implies genuine intellectual flexibility, a constant learning approach.
That's the core idea. Now, key to stopping this from just becoming another version of the CCP is how the leadership track is designed. The transparent merit ladder.
Okay, how does that work?
Recruitment is wide open. Citizens join after passing objective civic knowledge exams and demonstrating actual community work, getting involved.
A promotion isn't based on connections.
No, strictly based on a combination of quantifiable KPIs, measurable results like improving city-level economic growth or life expectancy.
Okay, the hard data.
And qualitative feedback from citizen satisfaction surveys, extensive peer reviews within the party. Both matter.
And to prevent factions or a strongman taking over?
The source mandates mandatory rotation across different regions, different government departments.
So an official has to prove they can handle diverse challenges, run a rural health system, and manage a complex urban budget.
Before they can climb to the national level, yes. It's designed as an institutional guarantee against political narrowness or building personal fiefdoms.
Okay, but if there are no elections, how does it maintain public consent? How does it stay accountable?
It's anchored in digital governance and accountability, using technology for continuous feedback.
Like what kind of tech?
Continuous public consultation using AI-powered citizen polling platforms, tracking public opinion on key metrics in real time.
And participatory budgeting apps. allowing citizens a direct input on how local money is spent.
Exactly, giving people real agency. And for the big, complex national policy questions,
The ones that need careful thought.
the blueprint uses deliberative citizen assemblies. Members are chosen by lottery, by sortition, like jury duty for policy.
So you get a nonpartisan, hopefully high-integrity citizen check on major proposals.
That's the aim. And to directly tackle the CCP's critical flaw opacity, the MGP commits to radical transparency.
That's radical.
All policy evaluations, declassified. Public gets real-time access to anonymized government data sets.
So researchers, journalists, citizens can see the raw data.
Yes. And crucially, all algorithms used by government AI
For things like resource distribution or surveillance or even policy suggestions.
must be open source. Anyone can inspect the code. Trust is earned through total visibility, not demanded through secrecy.
That focus on evidence leads to another interesting feature: experimental governance.
Right. Before any major policy goes national.
It has to be tested first.
Yes. Vetted through controlled sandbox zones. Specific cities, regions, maybe even highly realistic virtual simulations.
Like A/B testing for government policy on a national scale.
Essentially, yes. Decisions have to be evidence-validated before they affect millions of people. Ensures competence is grounded in proven results, not just theory.
Okay, but even with all this transparency and data, it's still a single party. The risk of unchecked power seems huge. How does the MGP build in institutional checks without gridlock?
This is the absolute firewall, critically important. It mandates an independent judiciary
Protected how?
by constitutional mechanisms that make it impossible for the party to interfere with court rulings, real separation of powers.
What else?
It installs ombudsman councils, totally independent of the party hierarchy.
And they have real teeth. Investigatory powers. Subpoenas.
Full powers to investigate malfeasance or abuse of power, and maybe most innovative, to prevent the manipulation of performance data, which is always a risk in technocracies, right? Cooking the books.
Yeah.
The blueprint creates the data auditors general, autonomous bodies, their only job.
To verify the data.
Verify that the internal metrics, the KPIs used for promotions and policy evaluation, are accurate, unbiased, and aren't being fudged or reverse engineered to make the leadership look good.
That's a clever check.
Combine that with strict, enforced term limits and mandatory rotational leadership.
And the MGP is designed to be this highly adaptive, intelligence-driven government structure.
Using the efficiency of coherence, like China, but injecting radical transparency and digital checks to guarantee accountability to results, not to a single person or ideology.
Now, the need for these kinds of radical models, whether it's the MMD or this MGP, it seems most acute in fragile states, right? Places where traditional democracy has just completely failed to deliver.
Yeah, the sources highlight chronically underperforming nations. Nigeria, Lebanon, Pakistan are mentioned. But they really zero in on Nepal as a fascinating case study.
Why Nepal?
Because it provides this perfect, very recent example of systemic disillusionment reaching boiling point. We saw this political event being called the Gen Z revolution.
Right, where this youth movement effectively swept away the authority of the government and its entire political class in less than 12 hours.
Exactly. It was this visceral, structural rejection, not just of the leaders, but of the system itself. High-level corruption, total stagnation.
Perpetuated by the three main entrenched traditional parties, the Nepali Congress, the UML, the Maoists.
Right. And crucially, this wasn't just a demand to swap one party for another. It was a wholesale rejection of the model that had consistently failed them for decades.
So what's their vision? What did they propose instead?
Their vision is a really radical break. They envision a one-party democracy that is radically meritocratic.
One-party democracy. That sounds like a contradiction.
They're extremely specific about it. They define it explicitly as not being a dictatorship. The democracy part comes through intense internal contestation and accountability.
Okay, how does that work? Their proposal hinges on this concept they call contested merit.
Contested merit. Instead of open, often chaotic elections where dozens of unqualified, corrupt, maybe even criminal aspirants can run.
Which happens in many places.
The meritocratic structure would filter the field intensely first. Rigorous vetting based on competence, ethics, track record.
So then what happens?
Every single office, from local council to national leadership, would ultimately be contested between two highly qualified candidates, both certified by the meritocratic body.
So the voter still gets a competitive choice?
Yes, a meaningful choice. But it's a choice between the two best available options that pass the merit filter.
Ensuring that the public selection starts with a baseline guarantee of competence and integrity.
Exactly. It aims to eliminate the problem of sheer populism winning or the infiltration of criminal interests into politics.
And this is paired with that idea of continuous accountability again.
Yes. The system would install internal mechanisms driven by performance data, citizen feedback allowing for the instant removal of poor performers, even midterm.
Wow, instant removal.
That's the proposal. It ensures leaders serve the people daily through measurable action, not just by giving a good speech every few years. It's seen as the ultimate antidote to short-termism and complacency.
Okay, and then there's the most revolutionary part of this Nepal model, the economic pillar. They call it Kalkiism.
Kalkiism, yes. The ultimate goal here isn't just better management of the existing economy.
It's moving structurally toward a moneyless society.
That's the vision. It's an attempt to tackle corruption at its absolute root cause.
How would that work? By eliminating the incentive.
Precisely. Kalkiism posits that if value is measured differently by documented service, by trust, by contribution to collective prosperity, rather than by finite, fungible currency,
then corruption, which almost always relies on the exchange of money for favors, becomes structurally impossible.
it's designed out of the system. It's a kind of post-scarcity vision, emerging from a nation often crippled by scarcity politics and the corruption it breeds.
So instead of government trying to collect taxes, which are then inevitably siphoned off by elites in corrupt systems,
The inherent efficiency and structural integrity of this new meritocratic system would directly fund public goods.
and the source suggests this deep economic transformation would allow essential services, education, healthcare, justice, to be provided free and universally to all citizens.
That's the ultimate promise, funded by the system's efficiency and integrity, not by taxes that can be stolen.
The historical significance of even attempting this,
Yeah,
it feels huge.
it really does. By daring to imagine a system where democracy is, in a way, purified into meritocracy, where choice exists but quality is paramount.
And where corruption is structurally impossible through economic redesign.
Nepal, a nation often underestimated or overlooked on the global stage, is positioned to potentially demonstrate a truly new path for governance in the 21st century. It's a bold experiment to watch. Hashtag tag tag outro.
So after all that, what does this all mean for the future of global governance?
Well, we've looked at three distinct models, haven't we?
Yeah, the structurally reformed multi-party system, the MMD,
Then the existing autocratic technocracy of China, with all its paradoxes.
and finally, that radical post-ideological MGP blueprint.
And then the key convergence point, the thread running through all the reform ideas, seems absolutely clear.
Which is?
That the future of governance, if it's going to succeed against these incredibly complex global crises we face,
It has to be competence first, data-driven.
and structurally insulated against short-term political cycles and financial capture.
It feels like the crisis of populism, the failures we see, have forced us to confront a hard truth.
Which is that elections alone, while essential for consent, do not automatically guarantee good results. Sometimes they guarantee the opposite.
And the source material really suggests that the biggest political challenge of our time isn't really choosing between left or right anymore,
Or even one specific economic model over another.
but choosing between results-driven competence on one side.
And ideology-driven stagnation or even chaos on the other.
Which leaves us with a pretty critical, maybe provocative thought for you, the listener, to take away and mull over.
For a political system to truly thrive, to serve its citizens effectively in the long run, which value ultimately holds more weight?
Is it democratic consent, even if that risks ongoing incompetence and volatility?
Or is it competent outcomes, even if achieving that risks more centralized control?
It may be the final puzzle piece, which we saw in both the MMD and MGP models.
Can AI and sophisticated digital governance truly provide the systemic checks and balances needed to make some kind of hybrid democracy of results actually function?
Can technology finally help us bridge that historic fundamental gap between consent and competence?
That really feels like the multi-trillion Babel question for the century ahead.